One of the first things President Biden did Inauguration Day was halting construction on the Keystone XL pipeline. Why did it shut down? Who did it hurt? I'm Andrew, and what do I think? Let's talk it. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Let's Talk It. I'm your host, Andrew, and today's topic is regarding the shutdown of the Keystone XL pipeline on January 20th, 2021. For those of you who are unfamiliar with the project, the Keystone XL pipeline, or KXL for short, is an oil pipeline system stretching all the way from Texas up into Alberta, Canada. Construction has been underway since 2010, along with all the controversy that came with it. Land disputes, environmental concerns, protests, and pretty much the whole 9 yards. Now you're asking, but Andrew, that's really bad stuff. Why wouldn't you want it shut down? And I'll tell you why.
45 million. What's the significance of 45 million? Well, I'll tell you. That's the amount of jobs lost due to the COVID-19 pandemic. And we can go into people getting evicted, people's family members passing, suicide rates increasing. But the point is, people are struggling, hurting even. And what's one of the first things President Biden does? He shuts down this pipeline, killing 11,000 jobs in the process. Now, I'm no Fox News, but even I see a problem with something as reckless like this. And believe it or not, I'm an avid supporter of green energy and other alternative energy, like nuclear, for example. But a gradual increase in said energies. What this wasn't a gradual increase in green energy at all. What it was, though, was an abrupt unemployment on 11,000 people during a pandemic, nonetheless. Now, I know and understand the worries of environmentalists when it comes to possible oil leaks, the tar sands, and all the like. But I have to ask, why now of all times? During the most vulnerable time in the U.S. economy in a long time. When it comes down to green energy and other alternatives, I'm all for it, okay? But done in the right way. The way people can learn and develop new and improved technology while not harming other people's livelihoods at the same time. At least that's the approach I like to believe in. Because if anything, this is more reductive and less helpful than it would be developing more technologies going towards like more solar panel plants, going towards more wind farm plants, going towards developing more of that instead of cutting these jobs so abruptly and so suddenly, where I can't but help but figure, where does it come from helping green energy? Yeah, you can argue the CO2 emission point. Yes, oil pipeline, oil transfers to it. People all over get that oil, then they use said oil and emit CO2 emissions into the air. Fair point. But the problem is the pipeline itself, albeit, yes, it would need to have more safety protocols, in my opinion, didn't need to completely be halted so suddenly, where these people, these hard construction workers, both on the Canadian side of the border and both in America, obviously, are now in a position and have been in the position for weeks on end where they're now unemployed. For the ones that are lucky, they had another job set up. But the ones that weren't as lucky, well, they have to go look now, don't they? They have to go look after we're still in a literal pandemic with millions of unemployed Americans everywhere. Now, is it for the environment? Or was it for something else that this executive order was made? I think it was something else because I don't honestly think President Biden would do this executive order unless someone else was profiting off of it, or possibly some of the lobbyists on that side. And yes, during the President Trump era, the oil lobbyist obviously profited more as well. Goes vice versa. But I'm going to ask you this. Do you think you could completely cut over 11,000 people's jobs overnight and not have any feelings about it at all? The people that have families, people that have lives that essentially need a job to sustain themselves. Already in a struggling country as is, with the most COVID cases and the most problems right now. I'd want to believe that the majority of you wouldn't do that, because I know I wouldn't. I believe in greener energy and gradual increase in greener energies. That I believe in, but not at the cost of people's jobs, not at the cost of people essentially being blown back away and essentially like punished for just doing their jobs when all it took was the signing of a pen. But that's my opinion. Anyway, another thing about this entire decision is something some people wouldn't have expected at all, me included. Here we have the Prime Minister of Canada. Some of you may know him. His name is Justin Trudeau. And my personal nickname for him, Justin Blackface Trudeau. Yeah, if you don't get that, make sure to look that up on Google. But even he said in a statement a day or two after the executive order came out, he said, quote, "Earlier today, Joe Biden was sworn in as the 46th President of the United States of America. While we welcome the President's commitment to fight climate change, we are disappointed but acknowledge the President's decision to fulfill his election campaign promise on Keystone XL." End quote. Wow. Justin Trudeau, a very, very vigorous climate enthusiast, even he called Biden out on this. And that just makes you wonder even more and ask more questions. Was this really for the environment? Or was it for something else entirely? Hey, we can guess, we can investigate, but it's President Joe Biden that really knows at the end of the day, right? But yes, I just wanted to add that in, that very important detail that, yeah, the Prime Minister, even one of the biggest climate enthusiasts I've seen in the political world spectrum, to be honest, even he called him out on it, and he was disappointed. But essentially, it just makes you wonder what is going on in our dear president's head on some executive orders. And now that I'm wondering, I think the amount of executive orders has surpassed 50 now, if I'm being correct. Don't quote me on that. Make sure to fact check me. But a president that has only been in office around, well, it's the 10th right now, around a little over like almost 2 months in office, already has made like a record essentially by putting out as so many executive orders. And even the media was commenting on it. Yeah, but very crazy things. Very crazy things going on. Besides that point, I just wanted to kind of conclude with even our very close neighbor Canada was deeply disappointed for this executive order and proceedings with the entire construction of the Keystone pipeline. But what I want you to go away with today is that even if we are in a pandemic, even if we're struggling, even if we are hurting so much, and this shouldn't surprise you, don't rely on the politicians and those that are elected. They will not completely help you no matter what instance it is in. We've seen it. We saw it for the past year. The amount of time that took for the second stimulus check, that by the time it came to the households that needed it the most and the people that needed it the most, it was a very nice chunk of change of $600. So, whenever you're thinking of maybe, you know, not worrying too much about your future, or, oh, if just another recession happens, the government will take care of me and such. No, they won't. Sure, your local government and such care more about you because that's more local. But federal, or rather, very specific politicians, so mostly all of them, mostly all the senators, mostly all the representatives. Well, to be fair, quite a few representatives actually do represent quite well their places they were elected in, but that's not the point. When let's say you're in a zombie apocalypse, God forbid, right? I don't think you're going to be running to DC and screaming at the windows, help me by giving me what I need to survive the zombie apocalypse. Because we all know what happens to that kind of person in the zombie apocalypse. Yeah, you get turned into a zombie. But besides being as corny as is right now, the moral of the story is, don't fully believe every policy. Those politicians that constantly get reelected, those politicians that constantly lie through their teeth like a habit, because they've been there for so long, it's practically like they can't stop lying, is the problem. Now, I love my country, but when it comes to executive orders like this, killing our jobs, dwindling down our optimistic approach to greener energies without cutting people's jobs like that, it kind of puts a very bad shroud on the entire, oh, green, go all green narrative and such. But I still have hope, because you need to have hope. If you don't have hope, if you don't have faith for the future, you don't really have much of anything now. But I mostly have hope for the people. Not those people that took 9 months deciding to give us all $600 of stimulus, but I mean the people like you, like me, just day to day, working, living, loving, just being people. And that is why I love talking about things like this. And that will conclude the Keystone XL pipeline controversy. And I must say, for my first podcast, I hope you all enjoyed it. Let's Talk It will be a weekly upload, and I, your host Andrew, will hope you have a good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and a good day in general. Thank you for listening. I will catch you, hopefully, in the next one. Goodbye.